Hello everyone, and welcome to our channel. I'm so glad you're here today. We have a wonderful story to share, one that will warm your heart and maybe even make you think a little differently about the small things we do for others. Today's English story is called The Kind Soldier. Are you ready? Let's begin. The world had been at war for what felt like an eternity. Finally, the fighting ceased, and a quiet peace settled over the land. A soldier named Vicha, weary from battle and longing for the comfort of home, began the long journey back to his village. His uniform was tattered, his spirit was tired, but his heart remained strong. He walked for days, the road stretching endlessly before him, each step bringing him closer to the family he missed so dearly. One afternoon, as the sun beat down on the dusty path, Vicha saw a man sitting by the side of the road. The man looked even more weary than Vicha. His clothes were little more than rags, and his face was etched with lines of hardship. But what Vicha noticed most were the man's feet. They were bare, cracked, and covered in sores from walking on the rough, stony ground. The man winced with every small movement, his pain obvious. Vicha's heart went out to him. Without a second thought, he stopped his journey and walked over to the stranger. The poor man looked up, surprised to see a soldier stopping for him. Vicha sat down on the ground beside him, unlacing his own sturdy leather boots. They were worn from countless miles of marching, but they were strong and protective. "Here," Vicha said, holding them out to the man. "Take my boots. Your feet are in a much worse state than mine. I can walk barefoot for the rest of the way." The man's eyes widened in disbelief. He stared at the boots, then back at the soldier. "No, I can't," he stammered. "You are a soldier, returning from the war. You have walked so far. You need them more than I do. Your journey is not over." It was a generous offer, one he couldn't possibly accept. Vicha simply smiled, a kind and gentle expression on his tired face. He pushed the boots closer to the man. "Don't worry about me," he said softly. "I've walked far enough in these boots. But kindness walks farther than any pair of shoes ever could." His words were so sincere, so full of warmth, that the poor man could no longer refuse. He slowly took the boots, his hands trembling slightly. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I will never forget this." Vicha just nodded, stood up, and continued his walk home on his bare feet, feeling lighter than he had in years. Years passed, the land healed from the war, and life returned to a new kind of normal. Vicha settled back into his village, but times were tough. A great storm had swept through the region, damaging many homes, including his own. He worked hard to repair his small house, but with limited resources, it was a slow and difficult struggle. One day, a wealthy merchant arrived in the village in a fine carriage. He was looking for someone, asking questions around the town square. Eventually, he was directed to Vicha's modest, partially repaired home. The merchant approached Vicha, who was busy trying to fix his leaking roof. The merchant looked closely at Vicha's face, a glimmer of recognition in his eyes. "Is your name Vicha?" he asked. "Were you a soldier in the Great War?" Vicha, surprised, confirmed that he was. The merchant's face broke into a wide, joyful smile. "I knew it was you. Do you remember me?" he asked. Vicha looked at the well-dressed, prosperous man before him and shook his head. He had met so many people, seen so many faces. The merchant pointed down at the expensive, polished boots he was wearing. "Many years ago, on a dusty road, you gave a poor, shoeless man your own boots. You said kindness walks farther. I was that man." Vicha was speechless. The man he had helped all those years ago now stood before him, transformed. The merchant explained that, with the boots on his feet, he was able to travel to a new city and find work. He worked tirelessly, saved his money, and eventually started his own successful business. He had never forgotten the soldier's act of compassion. "I have returned to thank you," the merchant said, "and to repay your kindness." He saw the state of Vishaya's home and immediately offered his help. He hired workers, bought the best materials, and not only helped Vishaya rebuild his house, but made it stronger and more beautiful than it had ever been before. Vishaya's kindness, given freely on a lonely road, had journeyed through the years and returned to him, full circle. And that brings us to the moral of our story. One kind act, no matter how small it seems, can travel in ways we cannot see. It can return to you when you least expect it, often in a much bigger way. Vishaya's simple gift of his boots didn't just protect a man's feet. It gave him hope and the strength to change his life, which in turn changed Vishaya's. Thank you so much for watching The Kind Soldier. We hope this story has inspired you. If you enjoyed it, please show your support by giving us a like, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to our channel for more simple English moral stories. See you next time.